Cabrera with our breaking news coverage this morning. Any moment now, President Trump will make his first public appearance since announcing airstrikes on Iran. He's expected to address this war before he awards the Medal of Honor to 3 U.S. service members. The president vowing to avenge the deaths of 4 U.S. troops in this war against Iran and warning Americans more U.S. troops will likely be killed over the next few weeks. We are now 3 days in, and the war is expanding, with Iran and Iranian-backed groups retaliating against U.S. bases and allies across the region. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, says more U.S. forces are joining the war today, but Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth insists this will not become a forever war.
We set the terms of this war from start to finish. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time.
Joining us, MSNOW's Inez de la Cuetara in Tel Aviv, MSNOW senior national security reporter David Rode, also with us, New York Times diplomatic correspondent Michael Crowley, and retired Army Major John Spencer, chair of urban warfare studies at West Point's Modern War Institute. Inez, again, we're waiting to hear from President Trump, but there were just sirens where you are in Israel. Describe for us what's going on.
There were, Anna. Yeah, we just had to go and head to the bomb shelter there. Sirens have been blaring throughout the day here in Israel, all across the country. We know that at least 19 people were injured in a strike this morning, 10 people killed in Israel so far since the beginning of this war. And casualties have been rising across the region. We also learned today of the death of another American. This is the 4th U.S. service member to be killed. CENTCOM saying this was someone who was injured as part of the first wave of strikes, who has succumbed to their injuries, and the Pentagon moments ago saying that this was someone who's working in a tactical operations center. We are also getting a rising death toll from Iran. At least 555 people killed there, according to Iranian state media. We understand that at least 165 people killed in just one strike there. Beyond that, also 31 people killed, at least 31 people killed in Lebanon. Hezbollah joining this war, firing a rocket at northern Israel this morning. Israel striking back Beirut and southern Lebanon. And like you mentioned, the president warning there could be more casualties as this continues. We are also just moments ago getting word from Qatar's defense ministry that 2 Iranian planes were shot down over Qatar, which gives you a sense of how this conflict is really expanding. So we know Qatar targeted, Bahrain, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates also targeted throughout the day today. We understand that it's been energy facilities that have been targeted in some of those countries. The Saudis, Aramco's largest oil refinery, also targeted by drones today. So real concerns for what this could mean economically as well, and how that could disrupt the oil trade.
Inez de la Cuetara, thank you for that reporting. We'll let you go. We want you and your crew to stay safe. Thank you for bringing us the latest from Tel Aviv. So, David, as we await the president again, he's supposed to address what's happening here in Iran and the region of the Middle East at the top of this Medal of Honor ceremony. As we await that, what are you tracking? Where are you seeing the latest strikes? And what more do we know about these American service members who've now died?
We don't know much beyond what Secretary Hegseth said. And the question, I think, what I'm really tracking is what I want to see in terms of what President Trump's remarks are, is what is the end game here? When President Trump announced these strikes, he said the goal was for the Iranian people to rise up and take control of their government, topple the Iranian government. Pete Hegseth is saying this is not a war of regime change. And so I'm confused now. So I'm very curious if the administration is now going to scale back the goal of this war to not toppling the Iranian regime. You know, and which it is so key, and military officials have said this many, many times. Never send Americans into harm's way if you don't have a clear strategy and a clear objective. So, you know, we've lost these 4 Americans. There are others injured.
And the president has warned there could be more.
And there could be more, and this could go on for weeks. So what is the objective? That is his job as commander-in-chief to explain that to the American people and to these service members who are risking their lives.
Yeah, we will listen for the president to make the case, the justification for going to war now and what that end game looks like. Major, what's your assessment of this operation so far?
Well, first, my assessment is that the president has not said the goal was regime change. He's now talked to the country twice. Within the opening shots of the operation, he made very specific goals for the operation, the nuclear, the missile, and the Navy programs, and said the byproduct is the chance for the Iranian people. My assessment of the operation so far is that it's extremely lethal, historic in the operation, and eliminating the senior leader and 40 senior Iranian military officials in the opening minutes of the operation, and the coverage on the nation's other assets in accordance with the goals in which both the president has now said twice in public to the American people and the Secretary of Defense said this morning, very specific to that nuclear threat and that ballistic missile program. But war is a contest of will on it. It's about changing behavior. It isn't about spreadsheets and metrics and even extreme capabilities. It's about changing the behavior of the regime for 47 years of developing nuclear weapons and targeting Americans across the Middle East and even in the United States.
Is this strategy going to change the behavior?
Absolutely, it could. I mean, we know that within the 92 million population, you have about 10% supporting the regime. Israel eliminated 30 of the senior leaders. The complete hardline military leadership of the Iranian IRGC and others. Since this operation has started, over 40 of them. Eventually, you get to actually changing behavior and in real negotiations in good faith. And that hasn't happened yet with the Iranian officials. The New York Times reported this morning that no, they're not willing to negotiate with the president. So this is why war is a contest of wills. And yes, I believe that the behavior will change, or you eliminate enough of that leadership who isn't willing to change and you get new ones.
Yeah, it's unclear who those new leaders could be. The CIA assessment, according to our reporting, is that it's hardliners that are set to emerge from this as the new leadership in Iran, with those who've already been killed. And Michael, in the meantime, we're watching as other nations are being dragged into this. But has the president clearly explained to them or the American public what the imminent threat was?
Well, no, because there was no imminent threat. I don't think even this administration is arguing there's an imminent threat. There were some mixed messages right after the operation began about whether they were preempting an Iranian attempt to preempt this operation. But that was very narrow to, this particular conflict. As far as whether there was some, larger Iranian threat that was about to emerge unrelated to the American threats, no, this was about a long horizon, a timeline of, likely months or years, particularly when you're talking about the missile program and you're talking especially about Iran's nuclear program, which President Trump, everyone remembers, claimed was crippled last summer by U.S. and Israeli strikes. So there is no imminent threat to explain to the regional allies. Now, those Gulf Arab countries would be very happy to be rid of a theocratic, religious, fundamentalist Iranian regime, especially a Shiite one, because those Gulf Arab nations are Sunni. But look, you have to remember at the same time, the UAE and Saudi Arabia have been trying to essentially cool tensions with Iran and invest in a future where these countries are actually tourist destinations. And the UAE, last I saw the numbers, makes more money on tourism than it does on energy, believe it or not. They don't want instability. Drones striking the airport in Dubai is a disaster for the UAE. So they may, to a degree, be happy to join with the U.S. in trying to solve the Iranian problem long term if possible, but up to a point, because if this unleashes new chaos in the region, it could be very devastating for these countries. And so I think they are wondering what Trump's endgame is here. I don't think Trump himself has one. I say that based on all the public evidence and behind-the-scenes reporting we've seen. So it's a big question mark.
Major, you have said that the president is fulfilling his Article 2 duty to protect the American people. He just told the New York Post that he has not ruled out sending in troops. You were an infantryman in Iraq. Are ground troops needed, and is it avoidable?
I sure hope not. And the president has said in other cases, with the goal of not being a regime change, this isn't a regime change war, in my opinion. Based on being a part of one, I invaded a part of the forces in Iraq. I jumped into northern Iraq. I know what that looks like. This is actually ending a forever war. And on the imminent threat of that, Article 2, I mean, how much imminence do you have to give it when clearly after the 12-day war, Iran said, not only am I not giving up my pursuit of nuclear weapons, I'm going to fast forward it, kick out all the inspectors. I mean, this is the imminent threat, and clearly in attacking, 14 different neighboring states at this point, all the way to Cyprus. They're a threat to the region as much as they are to all American bases in the region.
Michael, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer just spoke about these strikes. I want to play what he said.
The United Kingdom was not involved in the initial strikes on Iran by the US and Israel. That decision was deliberate. We believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement. President Trump has expressed his disagreement with our decision not to get involved in the initial strikes. But it is my duty to judge what is in Britain's national interest. That is what I've done, and I stand by it.
Michael, how significant is this from one of our biggest allies?
It's quite significant. It's very interesting, and I think of it in a historical perspective. You may remember that when the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003, we were joined at the hip, George W. Bush and Tony Blair were joined at the hip, and that was a crucial alliance. And for Bush, I think having Blair, having a European, at a time when many other European leaders were opposing the war, gave Bush confidence in what he felt like was credibility. In this case, you don't even have the United Kingdom, and essentially it's America and Israel. And there is support from regional allies, the Arab countries in the region, but they have their own defensive self-interest very much at stake here. They're threatened by Iran and by Iran's retaliation. So I put that in a different category. The U.S. is not going entirely alone, but this is look, in the Bush era, this was called cowboy diplomacy and cowboy United States, going around the world, sort of shooting first, asking questions later, not worrying about allies. I think this is a more extreme version of that. Now, you may say it's warranted by the threat. But again, one more point I'll make, if we're going to talk about the idea that you can't wait for the threat to become imminent, again, I recall the debate in 2003 and Condoleezza Rice, who said we can't allow the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud in Iraq. And, I think that there was a lot of concern about that perspective. It's a very complicated debate. I don't think we're really having it in this country, or at least we were not prior to the beginning of this operation.
That's right. Sounds like we're having a bit of that debate, though, now, at least as we discuss the different facets of this operation and what could come next. Michael Crowley, Major John Spencer, thank you. David